These three things that I'm going to teach you, most crucial. So I can go away after this next 15, 20 minutes. I can go away. And if you have these and you master these, you will own the key to the kingdom. And these are the only, I have 3 little kids, 8, 5, and 3. And this is the only 3 things they need to master in their lifetime to become a leader in this world going forward. Okay, number 1, you ready? Yeah. Number 1, you, personal story, your personal story. Most valuable thing you got. I don't care what kind of education you have. I don't care about your background. Your personal story is the most valuable thing you have. Yet, it's the first thing you're going to devalue. It's the first thing you're going to discount and go, my life, my story's kind of boring, or it really can't make an impact on people. No fair. Don't do that. Ever. Not anymore. Not going forward. It's no fair to say that. And it's not true. Everyone I've ever met has an amazing story. They just don't know it. And it's dramatic. They just don't know it because you've spent all your life, 50 years for me, 51 years for me, living this life. I don't tell 51 years of it. I tell 3 minutes of it or 2 minutes of it. Everyone's got drama there. That personal story connects you to the rest of the world. Now, when you're telling your personal story, this is not for the faint of heart at all. I think it's the most heroic act you can do. It takes all the courage you have to go inside here and reveal this thing, how this thing operates. But it's our number 1 thing for connecting to people, because guess what? Vulnerability is the new power. Right? So if you're vulnerable, all of a sudden we've got to be attracted to you. We've got to come to you. Now that used to not be the case because we've spent most of our lives, right? Most of our lives we spend, I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to show anything. But who are the people that we're most attracted to in our lifetime? Think of them. Think of the Olympics. You guys watching the Olympics right now? What's attractive is when they're so vulnerable because they're so far gone. They're so far out there, extended. You see these little girls, these little pixies? So you can't take your eyes off them, can you? Why? Yeah, and they're so fragile. One little gone, out, loser, no good to us. You know? Like that. Their personal story is the key to their life if they have the ability to express it and share it with people. Okay, that's number 1, personal. The more personal your story, the more universal it becomes. So the more I get personal about my story, like I'll give you an example right now. 10-second story. My dad is a cowboy, right? He ropes cattle, right? When I was growing up. So when you rope a 1,000-pound steer, you jump off the horse and you hold the steer back with the rope. Well, the steer's running the opposite direction. That rope slides through your hands. Well, that burns your hands. Actually, smoke comes off your hands. So my dad had these hands just full of scar tissue. So when we were kids in the swimming pool during the summer, my dad would pick us up and throw us, and we go, Dad, don't touch me, because his hands were just scar tissue. Okay, that took 10 seconds to tell you that. When I speak of my dad's hands, you don't think of my dad's hands. You think of your dad's hands. The more personal it is to the teller, the more specific, the more detail, the more you get your life. So people always go, well, Bo, wouldn't that be selfish to just talk about myself, my personal story? No. You know why? People don't get you when you're telling your personal story. They don't get your life. They get their life. If you're good at it, if you're specific and make it personal. Now that personal comes with a lot of pain, okay? But guess what? Guess what? How many are in here? 300, 350, right? There's not a huge line waiting outside. There's not a line of people waiting outside. Guess why? Because this is painful. That's what I'm talking about, the vulnerability. This takes all that you got. But going forward in this world, if you want to lead and you want to have an at-bat, because eventually you're going to get an at-bat. They're going to go, you know what? You've been around long enough. Come here. Come up here. And if you can express yourself and communicate, people will follow you. Then you can lead them anywhere you want, right? So we got to get responsible about that. Personal equals universal. That's number one. Number two, physicality. It's a lost art. Physicality. You must bring it to your storytelling. In fact, I want it to be, this is how I love storytellers. This is how I train them to be. I don't want there to be any separation between you and your story, right? In fact, I want these molecules of you and this story to marry, to bridge together and be one, so that this physical body is communicating you 24 hours a day, everywhere it goes. To get the best physicality, you have to look outside the speaking realm. We have to go outside of this discipline to find the people who are really expressive physically. Elite athletes, for sure, right? Animals, predator cats, okay? Look, they're so deadly, yet so efficient. And when they move, you cannot take your eyes off of them. That's what I want you to have. Think of the occupations that you just can't take your eyes off. Ballet dancers, Mikhail Baryshnikov, all expression all of the time. He never says a word. But you get his whole life based on his moves, based on how he moves his body. We believe, as human beings, we believe 50% of what comes out of somebody's mouth. So the whole time I'm up here talking, in your own head, you're going, oh, yeah, I believe that. Oh, I don't believe that. Oh, I believe that. That's what you're doing. But physically, you believe my body 100% of the time. Because guess why? Body can't lie. I want your body to be congruent with your story so it tells the truth all the time. Now, my movement coach goes to the chief of the tribe, and he goes, Chief, this is unbelievable. You're telling me that no one in the history of this tribe has ever been eaten by a lion or a tiger. And the chief goes, oh, no, we get eaten now and again. And he goes, really? When? And he goes, oh, when the men get drunk, they get eaten. So those animals are just waiting. Right? Hear a little party music? And now somebody who's moving through the jungle like this, aware, a predator himself, aware, knows everything around him, communicating all the time, now does this. Easy meal. It's not us. That is not us. That takes everything you got to be brave enough to express this thing. Again, it goes back to vulnerability. You're going to be vulnerable up here. It's the name of the game. Because once you have vulnerability, then you have humanity. Then you got, now we got connection. Now we're one. Now we can go somewhere together. That's why I teach my kids these things, because I know going forward that if you can communicate physically, which is a lost art, almost nobody can do this. Almost nobody. That's why we have to look outside of this discipline. That's why we have to look at elite athletes, animals, Mikhail Baryshnikov. We have to look at the predators. That's who we are. Let's get back to our nature, expressive, physical, procreators, all the time like this, okay? That way, if you do that, now you don't have to do that all the time, because guess what that earns you? That earns you this. That earns you silences. You can't just be silent to be silent. You got to earn it. And motion, if you move with a purpose, you collide with destiny. So motion creates emotion. And then now you've earned it. Now you can hold still. Now I can whisper. I can do anything now. So I've earned it. Number 3, generosity. One word, generosity. Now, when I say that, people always go, oh, Bo, yeah, hey, I'm so generous, I gave $100 to charity. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the art, the lost art of giving all of yourself, all of the time. No one will do this, but if you do, I promise you a life that you will live in rarefied air. Because no one will do it. Guess why? It hurts too much. It's too much pain. It's too much putting your ass on the line day after day after day, and you're going to get smacked. That's part of the game, right? Generosity. You have to look outside this discipline for generosity. If you ever look at the greatest performers of all time, they give more of themselves to that art form than anyone else has. I did my play in a theater in New York City, and it was owned by Mikhail Baryshnikov. And that's where the theater was the same building that his ballet studio is in. So he's training all these ballet dancers. So Mikhail Baryshnikov would get in the elevator with me maybe once a week when I'd go up to my theater, right? And I've seen him perform on stage, and it's as if he's 10 feet tall when he's up there dancing, right? The greatest ballet dancer of all time, changed the art form forever. When he gets in the elevator, first time, he was that big. And I could not make eye contact with him. That's how freaking stud he is. All I would look at his face, and I'd look straight down at his feet. You know, like when you're in an elevator, and I'm like, damn. And his feet, he would never wear shoes. He can't wear shoes. His feet are so mangled. They're pointing every which toes, every which way. When you look at his feet, it tells the whole story. You go, this guy changed in art form. He changed the world of ballet forever. And those feet tell the whole story. There's a price to pay for this. He has given more to this thing that they call ballet than anyone else in the history of that art form. So he gets to be the leader. He gets to have the biggest voice in that world. And guess what? He gets to get paid the most. That is true for every single one of you. Generosity, the reason I love it so much is that it is up to you. That's really up to us how much we give. I played football with a guy named Jerry Rice. Later in my career, I got traded to the San Francisco 49ers. This guy is the greatest football player ever to play the game, ever. No one will ever get near him. He's got more touchdowns than anybody else by so far that no one will ever catch him. He's so great. Well, I played on his team, right? I played against him. I knew he was good. I knew he was great. But when I got on his team, I understood everything. He gave more to a game or this craft, what we called football, this art form. He gave more of himself to that game than anyone I've ever seen. So he gets to be called the greatest football player in the history of the game. He also gets paid the most, and he gets the biggest voice in it. Well, what about you? What about you? Same thing. It's up to you. Your generosity, how much you give, is up to you. Jerry Rice, Mikhail Baryshnikov just made a decision. They made a decision, and they found an occupation that lined up perfectly with their human expression, and they said, that's my occupation. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't care. My wife came to me a couple years ago. She goes, Bo, hey, Jerry Rice, your ex-teammate's going to be on Dancing with the Stars. And guess what I said? He's going to fucking win. Doesn't matter. He's not a good dancer. Naturally, Jerry Rice is not a good dancer. In fact, he's kind of uncomfortable at it, which is really weird. It's like most of those wide receivers, man, they're loose. They can dance, But Jerry Rice, he was a little bit like, Urkel, a little bit. But when he got on Dancing with the Stars, I go, he'll give more of himself in those weeks than any other of those dancers. I knew it. So it doesn't matter what your occupation is. It matters how much you're willing to give of yourself for it. And no guarantees. No guarantees, none. But who cares? That's why there's not a line waiting outside here. There's not a line because there's no guarantees. It's up to you. It's in our control. You give all of yourself, and I promise you, you will look up after a number of years. You will look up, and I'll promise you one thing, that you will be surrounded by people you respect. Heroes of yours will surround you. Those are the three. Thank you.